We're talking more about objective tests of hearing. And remember, objective tests, the patient is not involved. That's with subjective tests, the patient plays a role. So our first objective test that I want to talk about in this lecture are otoacoustic emissions. Oto would be ear, acoustic, sound, emissions coming from the ear. The first type are spontaneous otoacoustic emissions. And this is for almost 70% of the population with normal hearing just have these very, very soft sounds that come out of your ears. And when I say normal hearing, I mean a healthy cochlea. Now, they are very, very soft sounds, negative 10 decibels to 10 dB SPL. So it's not like you can sit quietly and listen to them. You can't hear them. They're really soft. You need a really sensitive microphone to record these sounds. And these spontaneous emissions are present in the absence of any external stimuli. So if you're just sitting very, very quiet and have a very, very sensitive microphone, I could put it in your ear and record these in 70% of people with normal hearing. The other type of otoacoustic emissions, which are much more important for audiologists, are the evoked OAEs. So everybody with normal hearing or healthy cochleas have evoked otoacoustic emissions. This means everybody with normal hearing, I can send sounds into your ear and record a response from your outer hair cells processing those sounds with a very sensitive microphone. Okay, so these evoked otoacoustic emissions are huge. They're so monumental and they're so important. And this is why we have newborn hearing screening. Because every newborn baby, I can send a sound into their ear, and if I record a response, their evoked OAE, with my very sensitive microphone, that means that their cochlea is working correctly. There are two types of evoked otoacoustic emissions, transient evoked and distortion product evoked. The only difference between transient and distortion product is the type of stimuli that is used to evoke the OAE, but they both fall along the same lines. So evoked otoacoustic emissions are really important for the differential diagnosis of sensorineural hearing loss. So evoked OAEs help me figure out if the sensorineural problem is in the cochlea or the auditory nerve, because evoked OAEs test the health of the cochlea. They're really great for hearing screenings in infants. This is how we have newborn hearing screening. Because of these evoked OAEs, we can now determine soon after birth whether or not the child's cochlea is healthy. They're also good for screening difficult to test populations that can't cooperate with the regular pure tone screen, and they can be used to monitor outer hair cell function, for example with ototoxic medications. So these evoked OAEs are the byproduct of normal outer hair cell function. So first, transient evoked OAEs are produced after a brief acoustic stimuli, so a click is presented to the ear. Then there's signal average, so more than one click. Then there's signal averaging to help separate the actual emission from the noise in the body. So signal to noise ratio is very important in this with the TEOAEs and with DPOAEs. Because these sounds are so soft, we need to get a good measure of them above the noise. Every individual with normal hearing will have a TEOAE or a DPOAE. As hearing loss due to cochlear damage increases, the amplitude of the TEOAE and all evoked OAEs decreases. So someone who has a threshold at 0 dB might have robust TEOAEs, but as they age and their hearing gets worse and their thresholds go to 10 to 20 to 30, the amplitude or the strength of their TEOAE is going to decrease until it disappears altogether. With people that have hearing loss greater than 40 dB, for example 45 dB onward, there are no TEOAE responses. So this can infer whether or not the cochlea is healthy. But TEOAEs, like distortion product OAEs, only test up to the cochlea, so they do not guarantee normal hearing. We don't know what's happening beyond the cochlea. That's the one drawback of these tests. Well, there are a few drawbacks, but that's a pretty big drawback, that it only tests up to the cochlea. So it's a test of cochlear health. When a TEOE is not seen, it suggests that there's a hearing loss greater than 40 dB. For example, if a person had a threshold at 60 dB, there would be no TEOAE. But the absence of a TEOAE, in order to be sure that the problem is in the cochlea, you also have to do tympanometry to rule out the middle ear as a cause for not getting a TEOAE, because TEOEs could get obstructed by the travel to and from the middle ear. To get a distortion product OAE similar to the TEOAE, a sound, 2 primary tones this time, are sent through the cochlea. The outer hair cells move up and down. That movement of the outer hair cells, the response is recorded by the very sensitive microphone. And DPOAEs, with TEOEs, they rule out hearing loss after a threshold of 40 dB. So to recap, spontaneous emissions are these very soft sounds that people with healthy cochleas have coming out of their ears, about 70% of the population. DPOAEs and TEOEs are evoked emissions. Everyone with normal hearing has them. The audiologist will send a sound through the outer ear, the middle ear, to the cochlea. The outer hair cells will move up and down. A byproduct of the outer hair cell movement are these otoacoustic emissions, which we can record with a very sensitive microphone. They test the cochlea. They test the health of the cochlea.